Welcome to LineCheck, a closer look at NFTs and how they can help musicians. The Current presents LineCheck, which is a series of public forum events with Minnesota artists discussing various topics affecting the local art scene. My name is Diane, and I'm sitting down with Minnesota musicians, artists, and friends at a look behind the scenes at what artists need to do to keep their careers on track. This spring, we've been discussing an array of topics from social media to the financial side of the music business to what it's like performing during a pandemic. Register for virtual live events or catch them on the Current's YouTube channel. NFTs have taken over the virtual conversation, but there are still a lot of questions about how they work and why they're valuable. And we will ask Marketplace senior editor Rick Karr to explain NFTs, and we have two musicians with answers, Allan and Ness Nite. But first, we're going to look at a video we shot at a concert that the Current hosted, where we asked the concert goers, what are NFTs?
What do you know about NFTs?
I don't know anything about NFTs.
You don't know what an NFT is?
No. Should I?
Is it net fundable transfer or something like that? I believe it's something like that, and you can basically purchase and own something digital.
NFT, yeah, I don't understand them, but I do know what an NFT is.
Okay, so I think it is an electronic thing. It's like Bitcoin, but it could be anything, like a painting or something. That's all I know.
Isn't that artwork that is not in your hand, but it's online?
They're pictures on the internet. Don't really know a whole lot more than that.
It's a non-fungible something, token, non-fungible token, and it's like digital art that you can buy. I don't really know that much about it. I think it's kind of silly, but people are into it.
It's like the digital token, non-fungible token, and it's hard to explain beyond that, I guess. Just like an ownable piece of a digital thing.
I do know what an NFT is. I couldn't actually create one, but I do understand it's something with cryptocurrency and being able to like register your artwork and other things to make it non-transferable.
Non-fungible tokens. It's like artwork that you own that no one else can own after you buy it.
It's uses the blockchain and you sell. It's a proof of ownership for like selling a JPEG or some kind of a graphic file or anything that's kind of represented on the blockchain, as I understand it.
Okay, so NFT, I believe, is a non-fungible token, and it's basically you owning an original file of a piece of like digital art is what I think it is.
It's pretty. I mean, some people know, I guess, but yet you can, as you can kind of see by the video, cryptocurrency seems to be a difficult concept to grasp because it requires knowledge of certain terminology and an understanding of the community that is selling it and investing in it. And we are learning that if you go blindly into buying or selling NFTs, there's risk of being scammed or, and why would anyone want to own something that simply exists on a blockchain that is a purely untangible thing? And what even is a blockchain? So first I'm going to turn to senior editor of Marketplace, Rick Karr, to answer some of these questions and be able to explain more thoroughly what are NFTs?
Okay, well, basically I want to start with talking about a token, right? Which is, I have here this is an old New York City subway token. This represents one ride on the subway. That's what a token is. It's something that represents something else, right? Now, the example that I like to use to explain to people what an NFT is let's say I give a poker chip to my best friends as a token of our friendship. If I give all, say, 8 of my closest friends these tokens, they all have tokens of the friendship. Right now, those tokens are fungible because they're all the same. All right, so now I want to identify which friend, which one does Basil have, which one does Todd have. I'll put unique numbers on each one. Okay, now those are non-fungible tokens of my friendship because they're unique. And in a way, a lot of the people in that video from the club were right. They're kind of getting at the essence of what we're talking about here. NFTs are a digital version of what I'm talking about. Now, a few things to think about with those tokens that I could give to my friends of friendship. My friend Basil could sell his to somebody. That doesn't mean that person who he sold it to is now my friend. Also, I could break up with my friend Todd and he could still have one. That doesn't have anything to do with it. It's just a token, right? It's separate. So, if you want to think about fungibility, dollar bills are fungible. Dollars are fungible. One is the same as any other, but NFTs are all unique. Now, you need to have a digital wallet to hold these. And the way that we keep track of them is on the blockchain, as all those people got, because this is, cryptocurrency is a way of keeping track of who has what. So it's not the file itself that you're getting. It's a pointer to some kind of rule set or some piece of art. Again, it doesn't mean that you own the piece of art. I mean, I think we all probably saw the story a couple months ago about a bunch of guys who bought a book, and I use the term guys advisedly, bought a book that was a treatment of a proposed film of Dune. And they thought that because they owned the object itself, they could create NFTs and use it to fund a movie based on this treatment. Well, they didn't own the underlying rights, right? They had a book, and that's all that they had. So, and I think there's a fundamental difference. I think the reason that people tend to get confused about NFTs is, and not to confuse, one thing that does get confused about them is that there's a big difference between the NFTs that a lot of people are spending money on. People are talking about blowing up. Last week, for instance, the person who bought the NFT of Jack Dorsey's first tweet on Twitter and was going to try to sell it for $45 million and got a high bid of $388. That is the kind of thing that's giving NFTs a bad name when it comes to artists issuing NFTs. Because in that case, Jack Dorsey didn't make any of the money. Not that Jack Dorsey needs any more money. All that it is the people who are collecting these things, trading with each other, speculating. When we're talking about artists issuing NFTs, it's usually a good thing because that's a way of giving money to artists. There is a big caveat in here, though. My partner is a visual artist, and they have told me time and again that friends of theirs have been ripped off because there are people out there who will find online images of works by artists, and I've heard this happening to musicians too, and generate NFTs around that and sell the NFTs or put them up on a marketplace. Mm-hmm. If they do this algorithmically, they don't own any of this art. They don't have the right to generate the NFTs, but the marketplaces where NFTs are sold have a really hard time policing this stuff. And so we have plenty of friends who have found their own work being offered as NFTs. So these are all the sort of pitfalls of it. Mm-hmm. The good aspect of it is, look, there are too few ways, I think, for fans of music in particular to give music to their favorite artists, to give money to their favorite artists. I mean, we all know that royalties from streaming services are garbage. Yeah, some people can make some money by selling vinyl or cassettes or whatever you want to sell, hard media, merch of different types. Mm-hmm. And obviously now that we're getting back into the live community, live shows again, live shows are another way of doing it. But an NFT is a way for an artist to generate income and give something back to the fan in the process. It's a lot like what Patreon does. I mean, there's a lot of similarity between what artists can do with an NFT and what Patreon offers. I don't happen to own any NFTs because most of my favorite artists, I don't think any of them have actually issued any, but I am a Patreon patron of a lot of those artists. And that gives me access to certain things like, a live video stream by David Thomas of the Cleveland-based band Perubu. Every Sunday, I get to ask questions directly to David Thomas if I want to, one of my favorite bands ever. And things like this can be baked in to an NFT. You can bake in special access. You can, if you want to, although I don't think anybody's actually done it successfully, bake in downstream royalty revenues. Some people have tried suggesting this. Some people have tried to set up NFTs. What you could do is have a smart contract in the NFT that says if this song generates more than $10,000 in streaming royalties, which of course means it would have to stream approximately 10 trillion times, I think, you can give people who've helped fund the recording project a slice of that revenue. The problem with that is that those contracts are really hard to enforce, and they're also hackable. We just saw this week a crypto exchange that got hacked with where people were doing something called flash loans, and then ended up wandering off with several $100 million worth of cryptocurrency. So, and that was just because there was a bug in the contracts. So it is really important in these cases for artists who do this to make sure that the code is right, because the code, the computer code, is the law in this case, right? There's no going to a court and saying somebody ripped me off, because the whole point of the NFT and cryptocurrency system is that it is kind of anarchy. And I mean that in this true sense of political sense. It's anarchism. It's saying there's no central authority, right? Everybody is involved in this. And this is what, to get back to the blockchain, what the blockchain is all about, right? The blockchain is, I could, if I wanted to, I could create a book. And I could say, I'm going to create Rick Karr NFTs. I'm going to write down in this book who owns number 1 and number 2 and number 3 up to number whatever. But that makes me a central authority, right? So I want to go into the world of cryptocurrencies where there's no central authority. And what that means is that everybody's kind of the central authority. And that's why NFTs are on the blockchain. That's what the blockchain is. It's a decentralized way of keeping track of who owns what. Now, I hope that was at least a clear starting point. I know it can be pretty tough, especially for people who, you know, if you already know a little bit, as you said, the jargon can get in the way. But how about if I leave it there and let you ask some questions of me?
Thank you, Rick, for your in-depth description and using different analogies for explaining what it is, because it's that complex. And I think that's one of the draws to it as well, is because it requires in-depth, it requires research, it makes it exciting and thrilling in a way. But before we get into more discussion, I want to turn to our musical guest, who is also our panelist, Ness Nite, with one of their new songs.
We hold hands, it could never be too often. Rolling around, put the side back in the coffin. She look like the one, and I'm about to be her something. Look like the one, and I'm about to be her She was all the way off, she was cuffed up, couldn't run away. She was cuffed up, couldn't run away. Love, she got locked up, she got lost. Love, she got locked up, she got lost. And I couldn't even realize we are not the same till I looked at my reflection, looked at your reflection. Opened up my eyes to feel the frame. Now we can't hide no more, can't lie no more. Now we can't hide no more. But we holding hands, it could never be too often. Rolling around, put the side back in the coffin. She look like the one, and I'm about to be her something. Look like the one, and I'm about to be her
That's our musical guest, Ness Nite, also a panelist. And a reminder that we were going to open up at the end of the session for some questions. So bring them if you have them. Let's start with you, Ness. What about NFTs drew you to the platform? Why were you like, I want to go here. I want to offer my music and art on this platform.
I kind of started getting into NFTs because I was into crypto originally, and I was like into the whole blockchain idea and like the different things that I saw people like building on different networks, like and then I eventually sort of ran into NFTs and I was like, oh, this is like a whole nother thing to get into, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, when I first started seeing NFTs, I didn't really see anybody doing like music NFTs or anything. And like, I have yet to like release my own just because I've been working on my new music, but like,
right.
It was mostly like the profile picture things and like generative projects where you, mint a random piece from a collection of thousands or whatever. And like, those were initially intriguing to me because like the ones that I was like getting into were exploring these doing these like community experiments almost, where like owning one gets you access to this community, and like some of them were like you get royalties from sales of the other of like secondary sales from that particular project or whatever. I was part of this other one that was like they were writing a TV show essentially, and like owning one of the tokens you could contribute to writing on the show or offer feedback or whatever. It was just like a collaborative thing, and I was like, well, this would like super work for music too, like in any sort of context. Like there's probably multiple platforms for this, but there is a platform called POAP where it's, now I forgot what it even stands for, but essentially it allows you to like gift people NFTs and for like participating in something. Like if like essentially like for this, if somebody was coming to this, you could receive, a LineCheck POAP to verify the fact that you were there, and like maybe in the future that would like get you something, like, oh, if you have that, like we'll send you a t-shirt or whatever, like sure. So there's that, and I was like, oh, that would be cool for like shows, because come to my show, you'll get this, and like maybe if you have like 3, you can come to the next show for free. There's just like different ways to implement things like that, and like the possibilities are endless. So I think that's what drew me to them initially, and what keeps me interested is the opportunity for innovation and like endless possible. Like because currently I just feel like the industry is so limited in like how you release music and how you navigate things, and there's like this sort of set in stone way, like, nope, you got to do this and this, and it's like I enjoy the freedom of being able to do whatever I want, and I think that's initially what drew me into it. So.
Yeah, it does seem like it's its own world and community of freedom and creative expression, and opportunities to support artists that are wanting to make really cool projects, including Allan. I've seen you've been making some NFTs in lots of different styles, like music videos, music. Can you talk to me about some of the NFTs you're making and what is exciting you about it?
Honestly, the most exciting thing to me about it is it just like, first of all, seems really fair for the artist, because like right now with Apple Music, someone can only support you at 99 cents or like $10.99. Like those are the only 2 options, right? And like that person can't keep buying that song over and over, or there's no reason to like keep doing that. Whereas like with this, when someone buys a song, they can then like see a monetary gain, and then you can get a percentage of that secondary sale. So like a lot of times, like with merch, if you sell a t-shirt, sell a jacket or whatever, you're just getting paid for that primary sale. If that person sells it next year, and like you do some really cool stuff. You might, drop a hit song, whatever the case is. You might go on tour. The value of that jacket may increase, but you don't see any of that, on the back end. You only get that primary sale. So like for me, like the business model just made a lot of sense to me. And I've just been experimenting, honestly. Like I haven't been really thinking too hard about it. I've just been putting out music that I like. And my second favorite part about it is the actual community. It feels like people who are buying your NFTs, they're really, because they're kind of half fans, half investors, they're really looking into you to see like, okay, what about the song? Did you make the beat? Like, did you do the artwork? Like, what was the process like? Like, you get more of those type of questions with the NFT community than you even do with the regular music industry anymore, because people are so, they're flashed with so many images and advertisements at one time and have a short attention span. Whereas it feels like here people are taking more time to look at what they're consuming and what they're spending their money on, because it's still growing and they're putting their money up. They're putting more money up. So yeah, I've been experimenting. I'm dropping a project through NFTs this year as well, but I've just been dropping singles, music videos. My friend drops like comedic videos too that he shoots. So you can really like drop anything, and it's like your people who are supporting you, they're really like investing in you at the end of the day, So that's been my favorite part about it.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people are saying that NFTs are going to die out, but I see the opposite trend happening, and it seems like it's going to become more and more and more common. And is that part of, your initial interest is like that it's becoming this thing that you want to start getting ahead on and getting a head start on something that seems so conceptually confusing to understand, I feel like is an advantage. Would you say at all? Either of you?
I would. I got into it how Ness Nite got into it through crypto. So like I would say it's an advantage, but I'll let you go ahead.
I would say it's definitely not going away. Like people, like regardless of whether people dive into NFTs for art's sake, like they're going to be using them in many other ways. Like the only like reasonable response I've seen from like somebody being interviewed was like Donald Glover responding to a reporter asking him about NFTs, and he was like, well, it's really going to be more of like there's not going to be like Ticketmaster or anything anymore. It's just going to be like your proof of ownership, and the same thing's going to go for like real estate and like stuff, like just being able to verify information like on the blockchain, like through NFTs is like going to be extremely standard like pretty soon. And so people aren't even going to realize that they're using them. And I think right now it just takes a lot of extra effort to understand what's going on. So I think that it's not going to go away. It's just like this is such a crypto. We're so early. Like that's just like what we are. We're just sorry, I'm trying to cuss. We're just early. And so yeah, I totally don't see it going away. I'm just like the people had no idea how to use the internet or a computer like 20 years ago or whatever. So
right.
Just thinking like Microsoft Paint was like the epitome of using the computer. That we live on it now, so it's just a time thing. We're fine.
Yeah. Allan, can you tell me a little bit more about some of the art and film music you've been releasing on the NFTs?
For sure, yeah. It's actually all been unreleased music. I haven't dropped any of the music that like my like current fan base probably knows me for. I've been just dropping new music. I've dropped two songs as NFTs actually that I have released currently, but I think I've dropped probably like 10 or more in general. And those two songs are Energized and Excited. I dropped the Energized music video, and it's sold on a platform called Glass XYZ for 1 ETH. And the Excited song still isn't sold yet. So those are the two only ones that I've dropped that like are older music or pre-released music. It's all been new music. So I'm still kind of waiting to like put my actual catalog of like songs that people found me through up as NFTs, and just 'Cause I still have like so much new music I haven't released. So I've just been using it like that, just to release music. I haven't been releasing it on streaming. My older stuff is still on streaming, but my new music is all just as NFTs. And I'm just kind of waiting for the world to catch up to the speed of how NFTs are moving. They kind of remind me of when QR codes were a huge thing, and then people are like, "Oh, this is a fad," and it's like, it's not a fad. It's just something that we're still figuring out the utility for it, and now we use it for everything, like to set up cameras, to go to now with the pandemic, when you go to a restaurant, you scan the QR code, and people don't even realize the technology they're using is just new technology at the end of the day. And I would say like the biggest thing I've been learning through just investing in crypto and this has been that any place where groups of people decide there's value, that's what value is. Like it's not created by anything else besides that, because even our fiat currency dollar isn't backed by anything. Like in 1971, Nixon made it so that it wasn't backed by gold anymore. So it's like now the dollar is just backed by us saying it means something, us saying this is worth $1. You know what I mean? So that's how I look at cryptocurrency or anything else. If enough people get together and say, hey, this is worth $1 million, then it is, because now you have a market for it. And now you have multiple people willing to pay $1 million for whatever that thing is. It could be this plastic pair of glasses I got for $10. If you know what I'm saying? If people decide that it's worth, if it was worth $1 million, then that's what it's going to be. So that's the mindset I will encourage people to think about when they're thinking about this stuff. It's like art. When you go into an art gallery, someone says this painting's 10 million. That's what the artist said it's worth. So, I mean, you know what I mean? So a lot of times we're not used to valuing music that way.
Yeah, I want to point to a statistic that overall sales generated 25 billion last year in NFTs. That is just crazy. And I'm a musician too. I think we all know how expensive it is to be a musician and actually to make music, including getting into a studio, hiring a videographer, getting all the gear. All of it's so expensive. And so folks are willing to pay extras for NFTs because we can't make a lot of money, putting on concerts. It's just like, wow, cool. It's nice to have the extra support. But then what do you say? Because I mean, we were talking about this earlier. It's just like, oh, people are poo-pooing NFTs left and right. What do you say to folks who say that it's just a giant money laundering scam for the rich? Or that's a really it's just everywhere. People are it's heavily criticized, and I want to know your responses to what that is. Those criticisms are. Either one of you can jump in.
I generally like don't even waste my time like addressing those things. I'm not gonna lie, just because it's everywhere, and like I only have so much capacity to be like, but like I have no capacity to do that really. But like it's sometimes I'll like try to go sort of what we were talking about earlier. The Patreon comparison. That's like the sort of the first thing I'll bring up where there's tons of different tools available, platforms, tools, whatever you want to call it, to be able to give yourself value as an artist. Like there's a platform called Telly that you can create a website that is token gated. So if you are releasing NFTs, the only way to like access that site is to prove through your hot wallet that you own like whatever token the artist decides you need to, whether it's like just a Ness token or like an actual piece of art or whatever. And like on that site, then I can be like, okay, here's maybe some demos or like, a Patreon where you could literally do just the world is yours. You could put whatever you want on there. That's sort of how I begin talking about it, to sort of contextualize the scenario and be like, well, it's a tool. It's the technology. It's not just pay $10K for my music video and that's it or whatever, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Is anything you would add,
I would say,
Allan?
I'm sorry. I would say I just don't even waste my time because it's the same thing. It's like you only have so much capacity. Like, and then also when you're releasing stuff this way, it's a very active environment. Like, there's a lot of communication going on. When you start releasing NFTs and get into the like NFT space, like time moves by so quickly. And it's like I've only been doing this since November, and like certain people in the space that come in looking to me for guidance, and like, I'm just learning. Like, I'm not, you know what I mean? There's people who have been doing this for years who have been like, kind of like trailblazing, and I just got into it, right? And have seen a lot of positivity from it. So like it moves really quick. So you only have so much time to address people saying it doesn't mean anything because it's causing so much change in your life as an artist that you can't afford to. But I would say, I mean, that sucks for you. You know what I'm saying? If you're gonna wait, longer, to like join, I just feel like, this is the time. You want to be early on stuff. So I wouldn't even go back and forth with anyone that was like, this is a scam. The money laundering thing, it's like money's laundered in every way. Money's laundered with regular businesses everywhere you look. So it's like you're just not seeing it. You know what I'm saying? But money is being laundered everywhere. So, yeah. I don't know. That's all I would say.
It seems easier to target things that are trending and popular, and that's NFTs right now and cryptocurrency. And it's easier to, I guess, target things that are, anything to do with making billions of dollars. People are going to target it.
Right.
And things that you can't understand. And I mean, as we're even talking about this, as Rick was explaining NFTs, it's already like in 1 year and one out. I've already to get myself ready for this podcast. I've never even touched cryptocurrency, but I had to do a lot of research. I had to read a ton. I had to listen to podcasts. But that just kind of give you an idea of like. But also, that's why I find it so interesting and why I wanted to talk to musicians who are actually making on this platform and doing it, because I think you're right. Like, they're going to become more and more prevalent, and potentially more accessible. But we kind of have to figure out how to get there first. I guess. Would you have advice for anyone who wants to get started on in this platform? And for one, what things to avoid, because it's easy to get scammed on anything internet wise, but especially right now, I think NFTs can be a hotbed for getting scammed. But do you have any advice for folks looking to start getting into NFTs?
Just the way that it works now, I personally believe that it's essential to also understand cryptocurrency and like what that is, and understand the fact that like the reason that people are investing in cryptocurrencies is because they're networks to build on. It's not like just, it's a different kind of dollar. Like they're investing in networks that you can build things on, like decentralized applications, essentially. So I think it's really important to understand that, like, and how Rick was mentioning earlier about it being decentralized. There's no, like, if you somehow lose money sending like ETH to the wrong address or something, there's no MetaMask customer service or like anybody to like, hey, I lost my money. It's like, it's gone. Like, you have to like know your environment, and like you have to, I do think it's important to learn like the ABCs of like what you're doing before you just dive into something, because that's the number one way to like get scammed or lose money or whatever.
Anything you would add, Allan?
I would say, like, dive in slowly, like wading in, learn your ABCs first, but like don't wait to learn them. You know what I mean? Because then by the time that they are prevalent, or that you could have maybe capitalized on it as an artist, you're just learning the ABCs. So I would say just start learning your ABCs now. And yeah, same thing. There's no customer service to call if you send money to the wrong address or it's sent to the wrong one or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I would say start with a small amount too. Like when you're starting, put like however much you can afford in 50, $100. Just start playing with things, in a small manner, just so you can, because you won't understand this by reading about it. Like you just won't. Like it's just, you only understand so much. You understand like maybe the terminology, but you won't really get how it works. It's kind of like learning how to ride a bike just by reading. Like you're not gonna really know how it works. So I would encourage people, even if it's in a very small way, even if you're spending $20, $10, $5 on a little bit of cryptocurrency, just to like see how it works and like try sending it to a friend and having them send it back and like just do little stuff like that. That's the best way. And then Twitter is really where you learn the most, just talking to people. That's like the platform that's the most receptive to like Web3 technology and NFTs right now. And I think all the other social media will follow suit. I think YouTube, Instagram, Spotify, I think they're quickly going to like follow suit after Twitter. So,
Gotcha. Let's bring back in a senior editor of Marketplace, Rick Karr. Rick, the term Ethereum, what's that?
It's a particular blockchain, and it's the blockchain where a lot, if not the vast majority, certainly an awful lot of NFTs live.
Okay.
And I wanted to bring up a couple things, kind of following up on what you said. Like basically, the idea of owning an NFT is it gets written onto this blockchain. What's a blockchain? Essentially, one of my reporters actually described it really well in a story a couple weeks ago. If you imagine a permanent ledger that says person X owns, and it's carved in stone, person X owns this much of this cryptocurrency or owns this particular non-fungible token, and it's inscribed in stone. It's there forever, and it's public. Anybody can go look at it. And what happens is, as transactions happen and as people send cryptocurrency from one to the other, a new block gets inscribed in stone. And then another new block gets, so what blocks are constantly being inscribed in stone. Now, a couple of things I wanted to say following up on some of the stuff that you guys said when I was just watching. One is that let's be careful about that $25 billion figure that you used. The reason we should be careful about that is because there's been an awful lot of a couple of scams. One called wash trading, which is where basically one person bids against themselves. The other thing is rug pulling, which is where you have a celebrity who launches a token, builds up the value, and then walks out with the money. And you're left with a token that's not worth much. I don't know of artists who are doing that. I don't think any artist is interested in doing that. Artists are interested in actually monetizing their work this way. But there are an awful lot of scam artists out there in this space playing games with people and preying on people's greed. Like people look at what happened with Bored Ape and those NFTs and they want to be part of that, the whole fear of missing out thing. So that's something that the space I think that as the space matures, that's going to subside a bit. The other thing that I think that nobody's mentioned so far that is a real issue that this space needs to deal with is that right now that Ethereum chain uses a method to maintain itself. It's called proof of work. Proof of work crypto right now in the world uses as much energy at any given moment as the entire country of Poland. It's incredibly energy intensive. To the point where we've just done a series of stories about companies mining, crypto mining companies. So that's what this is. It's inscribing those blocks that I was talking about on the blockchain. That's crypto mining. Because when your block gets accepted onto the chain, ka-ching, you get X number of Bitcoin or whatever the cryptocurrency is. It takes a huge amount of energy to do that. You have to have lots and lots and lots of computers that are all turbocharged, that are all cooled so that they're not cooking themselves and melting down their chips. And so you have these facilities. There's one in Texas and one in upstate New York that we profiled that use as much energy as a medium-sized town, 30,000 homes or something like that. So there's a gargantuan amount of energy going into this. Now, there are plans in place to migrate some of this stuff to what's called the proof of stake blockchain, which uses a lot less energy, but it hasn't happened yet. And so one thing I think you need to bear in mind if you're going to get involved in this is how comfortable are you being involved with something that is using a gargantuan amount of energy? And so those are just the 2 points that I wanted to make.
Yeah, that was definitely something I wanted to bring up. And thank you for bringing that up, Rick. What happens if you buy something on the blockchain, and is there a possibility of the blockchain just shutting down? What if it loses power or something? Is that can that happen?
The point is that the blockchain is everywhere, right? The way that it's public is that anybody who's participating in it can have copies of all of those blocks of stone I was talking about. It is designed to be almost like nuclear war proof, right? As long as there's a network connecting computers, and as long as enough of those computers are running the software for that particular token scheme, that particular blockchain, it's going to be there. It's not, in other words, it's not likely that it's just going to blow up like that. Yeah, that's not going to happen. Now, what the problem, what could happen is you could have a run on the currency. You could suddenly have a bunch of people there. There are, in Bitcoin in particular, there are people called whales who own a huge amount of the Bitcoin, and if they started selling, it's the law of supply and demand. Once the supply of Bitcoin for sale goes up, the demand for it remains constant. The price is going to go down. That's just the way the economy works. That's just the way that economic markets work. So one thing, and that's as Allan was saying, it's kind of buyer beware, right? But it's not the blockchains themselves are not going to go away. The blockchains need to be improved, though. Definitely in terms of the energy that they're using and the sort of governance systems of the marketplaces that let people do things like post NFTs of art that they don't own or wash trade. I mean, there's some pretty good evidence that one of the, if not the biggest NFT sales of all time was a wash trade. That when something gets up into the tens of millions of dollars, that is basically somebody bidding against themselves and saying, hey, look how much this is worth, and hoping that the last person buys it. But again, we're not talking about that here. We're talking about things that your fans would buy. Your fans, I don't think, are going to go out there and say, I'm going to make $25 million on it and give half of it to charity. They want to get close to artists. Fans want to get close to artists. You can see I'm a musician myself. Fans want to get close to artists, and this is a way for fans to get closer to artists and for artists to give something back to fans.
Absolutely. Are we anywhere close, do you think, to this stake form of
proof of stake? I don't know.
Proof of stake.
Do you guys want to address? Do you guys want to address the whole migration to proof of stake? I mean, there was a big test like a week ago, but I don't know how much closer we are to it.
I was gonna say it's kind of a running joke.
Is Solana
I feel like. No, I was just gonna say the whole when's ETH 2.0 sort of a running joke because it's been in the process for quite some time. But I think Allan was about to jump in on the fact that there are other blockchains besides Ethereum that you can launch things on. So
I believe Solana is proof of stake, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Solana is proof of stake. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's other ones that are proof of stake, but I'm not like the techie type. I'm just dropping my art, so I'm learning as I go. So Solana, though, isn't it more decentralized? More centralized because it is proof of stake? Isn't that?
That is the nature of proof of stake. Yeah. Once you get into proof of stake, the person who has the greater stake in that cryptocurrency is going to have more say in mining the next block on the blockchain. So it's really, it's like a rock and a hard place, right? On one side, we're looking at the proof of work systems, which are truly decentralized and very democratic, except that you're a lot more successful in them if you can afford to buy literally tens of thousands of computers and convert an old aluminum smelting plant into a crypto mining operation, using a lot of energy. Right, that's the system that's truly decentralized, but it uses a lot of energy. The one that can be a little bit less decentralized and give more of a stake to people who own more of it is the one that uses less energy. There's no ideal here. There's no ideal situation, no ideal outcome. Nuclear fusion power would be the outcome. Enough electricity that it runs everything, but.
Rick Karr, Allan, Kingdom, Ness, Nite, thank you. We're going to turn to our audience for questions and see if anyone has any follow-ups and perhaps things we didn't cover. And I have I'd like to thank the staff at The Current while we're waiting for the questions to come through for all the efforts made. And the LineCheck is also supported in part by the Minnesota Clean Water Land and Legacy Amendment. Also, we will be playing another music video from Ness Nite at the end of the show. While we're waiting for questions to come through, is there any particular NFTs that you're excited about, any of you, that you think are kind of cool and novel and, of course, unique?
Me. I guess I'll start. I'm really like paper hands. So like when I buy NFTs and I see the price go up, I like sell them. So like I'm not really good at like holding. But then I guess the pro of that is I don't really lose money on the ones I buy because like when they go up, I'll just sell them, but I'll still support the artist. So but there is an artist I really like named Domino. He's really cool, and he dropped a project where when you buy an NFT, you have to pay a gas fee, which is basically the fee for all of the miners and everyone that's recording all these transactions. And so he did something where you go on his website and you buy his project, and then you pay one gas fee, and then you get like 7 different NFTs, and each one is a different song. So like I still have that. I haven't sold those yet. But the crazy part is when you bought it, it was 0.07 for the whole thing. And then when you got each individual one, each one was worth 0.02. So essentially, as soon as you bought it, it doubled in price. Because each individual one was worth double together than it was worth when you bought it as one. So that was really dope. I mean, people are coming up with new stuff every day. There's a lot of amazing musicians in the space right now. Maroof is an amazing musician. Iman Europe was also an artist, and she's a director at Sound XYZ, which is a music NFT platform. So there's like a lot of amazing artists like in the space that I've just been finding their music that I probably wouldn't have found if they weren't releasing NFTs. So that's been my favorite part. But yeah, I mean, those are my, I would say, top 3.
Cool. Rick Oslin asks, where should I go to look at NFTs? Is there a good website?
Like for music NFTs, definitely like Catalog or Sound or Zora even, I think, would have more like music stuff. Because Catalog and Sound you have to be like invited to, so not everyone has access to release things there. But I think a lot of people choose Zora or Glass, I believe. I don't know about OpenSea. I feel like OpenSea maybe not so much, but for music NFT specifically, but NFTs in general, I guess like OpenSea or Zora or something.
Cool. Jessica, this one's for you, Ness. She says, when can we expect an NFT from Ness Nite?
Pretty soon I have to be able to like make something, you know, like I have the songs. It's more like working on funding the visual portion of it right now to the level that I want it to be to release something. So that's what I'm working on. So I don't have a date, but hopefully soon.
Cool. And Reed was asked the coolest artist NFTs they've seen. If anyone wants to add and expound on.
He asked the coolest artist.
Yeah.
I think the ones I said. Oh, Black Dave is another artist too in the space. There's so many artists. I would say, go on the platforms that Ness was just talking about. Catalog, Zora, Glass. Mind you, all of these like platforms are all connected. Like you can go on OpenSea, right? Like OpenSea is like Google, so it's all connected. Like just because it's on Zora or it's on Glass or it's on Catalog doesn't mean it's not going to be on OpenSea. It's all one network. These are just curated places, right? So when you want to go just for music NFTs, then you might go to these. But really, it's all the same thing. You could essentially build your own OpenSea and put your own NFTs out on your own website. You might not need any of those other ones. So these are just places to go to, like, kind of zone in and find like certain art that you like.
Yeah, and this might have been answered. Chance York, I might have missed it. Where do you suggest a music artist turn their music into an NFT?
I guess it depends if there's going to be a visual aspect to it or not. Besides just like a cover art, if it's going to be like a video per se. If it were to be a video, I would say Zora without having access to like one of the gated or invite only sites. Otherwise, like Mint songs or there's a few on like a few different blockchains, but I would maybe just start with Zora. And I would suggest doing a video first too, just to like, especially if you don't have any like people to talk to in Web3 yet, like I think it would be easier to like gain a little bit more attention if there's, something a little bit more interesting to look at as well.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Allan Kingdom, Ness Nite, and Rick Karr for being here and offering your insights and expertise. Thanks to our live studio audience. Thanks once again to The Current for putting this on. And my name is Diane. Thank you for tuning in. And we're going to turn it to another music video from Ness Nite, our musical guest. And tune in next time to hear our panel on applying for grants.
She wants me to go down the same road. I should know better. Another trip around the sun, is it written in the stars this way? She knows I wanna go get her, but I'll get lost if I fall again. If I fall, I fall. It ain't personal, this is serial. Another lesson feeling spiritual. Gotta break the cyclical, yeah. We'll do it now, we're forever golden. Faded, don't cover it all. Maybe sometimes it's just my fault. Lazy love lies are just how we're taught. Can't be surprised that that's how we fall. Maybe one day we'll figure it out. Take the one thing and turn inside out. Maybe one day we'll get what we lost. Just need one thing to be worth it. She wants me to go down the same road. I should know better. Another trip around the sun, is it written in the stars this way? She knows I wanna go get her, but I'll get lost if I fall again. If we fall, we fall. It ain't personal, this is serial. Another lesson feeling spiritual. Gotta break the cyclical, yeah. We'll do it now or forever golden.
LineCheck is supported in part by the Minnesota Clean Water Land and Legacy Amendment.